Good morning and welcome to your Rangers Review briefing for Monday, June 24th. I'm Chris Jack and I'm delighted to once again be joined by Stevie Clifford. The Dream Team is backed by popular demand. Stevie, how are we?
A bit rough, Chris, and not for drinking wise. Finally finished Dexter last night, so that was the rewatch. So that is all done, but I may have stayed up to the very small hours this morning watching it. So I am raring to go, apparently.
Good. Well, there's plenty to talk about as always. It's never dull in the world of Rangers, of course. So, firstly, a shout out to our morning briefing sponsors. They are, of course, the MPH Group. The link for their site is in the description below, and also in the description is a piece that Adam Thornton has written for us, looking at Clinton and Ciala. Of course, one of the new recruits that has joined or hasn't officially joined up, but will join up with the squad in the coming days when he completes his move from AC Milan. So go and check out Adam's view on him. We'll start with matters off the field. There have been plenty of names linked in terms of incomings and outgoings over the last few weeks as Philippe Clement builds his squad heading new campaign. Over the weekend, we had the first link in terms of the chief exec position. Rangers obviously in the market for a replacement for James Bisgrove following his move to Saudi Arabia. Andrew McKinley of Hearts is the first name that has been credited as potentially being on Rangers' list as someone that they would like to speak to. He's of course been at Hearts for the last 4 seasons. Previously held positions with the Scottish FA. He was chief executive of Scottish Golf. Stevie, does he fit in with the kind of profile that you would be looking for that chief exec position?
I think he would certainly like the position. Massive Rangers fan, and I'm not sure the links are anything more than perhaps him putting himself out there for the job more than Rangers might be actually looking at him. So I've heard he is one of the names that I did hear last week, one of a couple of names, but I'd be surprised, Chris, to be honest, if we went down the kind of Andy McKinley route from Hearts. So of the names that are mentioned, I think he, is the less appealing one. There is a few more in there that kind of make more sense than he does, but I suppose when there isn't transfer news and people need to fill the column somehow, then names and speculations for the CEO position are just as good. So, excuse me, that's going to happen, isn't it? It's going to happen in the coming weeks, and it's not only transfer speculation but there's everything else that goes on around Rangers. So we can expect more of that in the weeks to come. What about you? Do you fancy him? Like, do you think he's going to be decent enough? Or would he be decent enough for you?
I would be surprised. I think that if you look at the job that he has done at Hearts, and you look at Hearts being a fairly well-run football club, I know they had their own stadium refurb issues a few seasons ago, but generally Hearts are seen as a club that are on the up and up. Obviously, had a very good season under Stephen Naismith. You look at their financials, you look at the work that's been done in Tynecastle, and as a whole, the new hotel at Tynecastle, they've got their own training base also through Bickerton, so there's a lot to like about Hearts, but I would be surprised if the first name that comes out is therefore guaranteed, as you say, Steve. There will be a number of names, both in the background, and there will be names that come to the public, fore. But I think in a more general sense, actually, a point I was going to ask you: how important is it that it is someone, and this is a box that I think Andrew McKinley does tick, that has knowledge of Scottish football? It's a unique world up here. It's a fairly barmy world up here sometimes. Is it important that whoever gets that job understands the politics of the game, that is able to shake hands and kiss babies, if you like, and actually get things done at a political level?
Yeah, I think that's a fair suggestion, because it's not only having to navigate what's best for Rangers, but you have to also deal with other factors, don't you? I mean, it would be naive to sit here and say that we have a wonderful kind of reputation and relationship with our governing bodies. So there's a lot of work there to be done, and I think obviously we've maybe not had that the last 3-4 years. Certainly the whole Cinch debacle and everything else, since all that happened, we've perhaps went backwards that way in a relationship with them. So yeah, they do need to know the political landscape, Chris. I do think they need to know how to deal with our governing bodies. They do need to know, perhaps where there's one or two skeletons buried in that kind of regard, so that Rangers can negotiate and navigate that. But ultimately they need to be good at their job. I would just like somebody that's got experience of a CEO position and is able to handle a job with the magnitude of Rangers, not only where you have that relationship with the governing bodies, but you've also got to navigate and try and seek for change, which I think, if we get a new CEO, that kind of battle to force change at the top of our governing bodies doesn't really stop. And I think there is some clubs out there who are having their eyes open to the fact that Doncaster, Mulroney and stuff like that aren't where we really need to be. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes in, if they've got the teeth for that fight, Chris, so to speak. But I think it's imperative that they at least know the landscape and know what they're coming into and are able to negotiate that.
That political side of it, there's been various issues over the course of not just last season but several seasons, and the fans, I think, want the club to come out all guns blazing at times. But I think if you go back 2 or 3 seasons, the club was almost on this constant war footing with so many different stakeholders within the game. That has changed. That's not the way that they conduct their business anymore. I think Ibrox is a more welcoming place for visiting directors. Certainly from a media perspective, it's more welcoming. You're not going to get things done. You're not going to build relationships by shouting at everyone all the time. Now, if the club have a position to take on a certain issue, and they've obviously been vocal on Neil Doncaster, they've made points on referees, example, but you do have to have someone in that chief exec position who can do a bit of schmoozing at times, but as you say, is also forceful enough to get Rangers' point across and get Rangers business done, because the standing of the club and also the club position that we hold in Scottish football, Rangers should have more influence and need to have as much influence as possible.
Yeah, all fair. A return to the glory days of a couple of years ago isn't maybe the way anybody wants it to go, but I think that a healthy balance, Chris. I think you're right. I mean, there always seems to be cases where, as a fan and on social media and things, we want the club to come out and they have to strategically kind of play their hand. So I understand that completely, but getting the balance right is absolutely key. And there's a difference between being completely inactive on that front and getting it just right. So we need to strike that balance, and the person that comes in needs to be strong enough to be able to do that, and strong enough to be able to carry Rangers stature in these sort of positions. So it's an interesting one. Andy McKinlay, got to be honest, if we're going back to the original topic, I'm not overly sold or enthusiastic on this one. I am by other names that are mentioned more than I would be Andy McKinlay. So it's going to be interesting to see what else comes up and what else comes out in the next couple of weeks. So it's one to watch with a lot of things at the club. So it's never a straightforward, here's our new CEO kind of thing. So I'm sure it'll rumble on with lots of rumours to go.
While that situation is rumbling on, of course, the transfer window is rumbling on at the same time. I think we maybe addressed this towards the end of our stint on the show last week. In terms of Rangers not having someone within that chief exec role, obviously John Bennett has stepped in to be executive chairman. His entry is fairly busy right now, I think it's safe to say, for matters on and off the pitch. How do you see that being is it a disadvantage not having a chief exec there? Is it an advantage in terms of perhaps streamlining the process? And when you have as much business still to be done, it has been a fairly productive start to the transfer window for Rangers, but we both know of spoken about it often enough. There is so much still to be done in terms of shaping this squad. Do you see it as a disadvantage not having that chief exec role filled?
Not really. No, I think it's quite funny because only at Rangers you could be on the verge of 7 players in the door, and you'd be saying, "Well, that's a good start." So I think for all of us, I think we would be saying that these boys that have come in, it's just the beginning, and there's a hell of a lot more before it actually kicks in. And I think that's the way. We've not even scratched the surface yet, in my opinion, of people going out the door and coming in. So, and that's something else that we spoke about with regard to some of the easier deals that teams maybe don't want or going out of contract that are easier to do, and that's why they're here. I think your bigger signings, potentially your proper first team starters and things like that, which I would expect still to come, or I would hope still to come. I would think that they maybe take a wee bit longer. It might depend on one or two going the other way. So I think that we're in for a busy few weeks now that Philip Clement's back in the building. Now that the team are back in the building, I think that's going to be quite interesting. So we'll just need to see how that goes in relation to, does the CEO help that or not? I think that I don't really think so, Chris. I mean, we've sat in the presence of when this has been explained with regard to transfers and stuff like that, and Craig Robertson and Niels Coppin are basically your driving force behind all the deals, aren't they now? So I'm not sure that the CEO had a massive input on, he obviously, James Bisgrove would have sat on the transfer board that Rangers have got, but I don't think he was directly involved in negotiations and everything else. I think that's Niels Coppin. I think that's Craig Robertson, and John Bennett, etc., is the man that is convinced ultimately to sign the checks on behalf of the board. So I think that's how it works. The boys go to Bennett, Bennett goes to his board, comes back and goes back. I don't think that James Bisgrove, although he might have been a cog in there somewhere, I don't think that the CEO position not being there now is an overly massive problem. I think that if Niels Coppin left, that would be a really big loss to the kind of structure we have at the moment. But I don't think that James Bisgrove overly is at the moment. Being CEO is more about overseeing everybody, isn't it, than actually leading and stuff like that. So he's got heads of department and everything else underneath him for that. So although he might be involved, I don't think he's a cog that we can do without or whatever. And I would say that way anybody in the position, the way that we've now got things set up, it's more of a process than it is an actual individual negotiating everything. So I am quite comfortable with the position with James Bisgrove not being there or the CEO not being there, and I don't think it'll have too much bearing on our own kind of negotiations. You might even find that CEO comes back in for one of two of our players and might persuade them to come and join him in Saudi Arabia. So that's always one to watch for as well, Chris.
You mentioned the squad returning to pre-season this morning. A date that has been circled on the calendar for quite some time. It has been a busy few weeks so far, but you always get to this day and things then kind of ramp up, and also it's nice to see the players back, nice to see the manager back. What would you be hoping for over these next couple of weeks? The squad have a couple of weeks at Auchenhowie before they head out to Holland. How important are these initial days of pre-season for the manager, for the new players? We would like to think that an unveiling of a Moroccan striker isn't too far away, but he'll be the next one in. But there are many more to come, as we've spoken about. It's a really important time of the summer and time of the season for Philippe Clement.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, what I would hope for is that they're on Ghislaine sands and getting run, but those days are gone, aren't they? So, I would certainly hope that the fitness work and the physio work and all that has been done at these early stages. I would hope that, he's having major conversations with some first team players, and some first team players will now be heading out the door, high profile first team players, if you like, and also some more will be coming in. So I think that it's going to be a wee revolving door, I think, Chris, for the next couple of weeks, and then I would expect it to settle down as the team go to Holland and things like that. So Rightly or wrongly, I don't know how right this is going to be, but I think we're in for a really busy couple of weeks, and then it'll settle down as they go out, and things will begin to bottom out. I would think the Rangers would want to get 3 or 4 over the line in the next couple of weeks, and then any other business may either come, in mid-July, end of July.
Mhm.
I would think, Chris, they would want everybody to be settled in by, maybe at the end of July, and most of their business done by then, because August is massive. So I don't see them, and I would hope not. But well, it is Rangers, and we do everything.
Everything's on the table, remember?
Yeah, absolutely. But I would hope that we would be in a strong position by this time next month, and ready to go into that August being reasonably settled and knowing where we are as a squad. But and considering, I still think you're looking at, after these boys coming in, could be anywhere, another half dozen in and out as well. So I think there's still some big business to be done, and that's only. I'm not saying that based on anything that I've been told or anything like that. It's my own thoughts behind it. So I still think there's a real lot of business to be done, and in and out. So it's going to be busy in the next couple of weeks. And imminently, what would I really expect? Just fitness wise, and some people being told they're out the door. Some people maybe, speeding that negotiations up, etc. I think now the manager's back and everybody's back, I think these things will quicken.
Mm-hmm. Certainly in a fitness perspective, now we sat in countless press conferences with the manager during almost since the first couple of weeks of his tenure. This was a reality that dawned on him quite quickly once he was in the building, that this squad is one, not fit for purpose in terms of being able to go on and win the league, but fitness wise and in terms of robustness. You could tell early on that he was not impressed with what he inherited, the work that had been done. These next couple of weeks, it's almost time for him to put his words into action. I feel like we're going to need to see a fitter, more robust, more reliable Rangers squad come next season. And again, these first couple of weeks, I don't think they will be running sand dunes. If they were, I don't think you get many fans that would be against that. The sports science team might not be all for it, but there is a real focus on the medical side of it. I think probably even more so than it has been in the last couple of seasons. This has been a long-standing issue that impacted Gerrard slightly, impacted Gio a lot, impacted Michael Beale a lot. I think there's probably more focus on the medical and the fitness side of it than there has been for quite a long time, and the fans really need to see a bit of progress in that. And that really interesting to see what the manager does and how a Clement pre-season differs from what has gone before and what the impacts of that are.
Yeah, absolutely fair. And the thing is that he's had these things going around his head for the last 6 months, hasn't he? Because, as you said, when he came in the late October, we heard very, very early on that he was quite upset with the fitness and the physical kind of status of his squad, much to the point where he was exasperated in some press conferences talking about it. So he's not like he's suddenly had 2 weeks to think about this. He's had, best part of 3/4 of a year to kind of suss this out and decide what he wants to do. So I think it'll be tough. I think it'll be different. I think it'll be more, we obviously know there's been sports science upgrade. We know that there's been changes medically and in the sports science department for individuals at the training ground. So we're going to find out. I think this is all stuff we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks. I would expect the club to make a few announcements on maybe those positions and who's coming in and stuff like that. And I think that it's necessary, Chris. I think it really is. I think that to have a fitter Rangers team is priority. I think that when we played, even as early on, if you think back last season, as early on as those PSV qualifiers and stuff like that, there was questions being asked about how fit we were and what the position was. And I remember when we were out in Germany playing that first half and in that 2-2 game where we were 2-0 down quite quickly, people were going, why do we look so slow and unfit and things like that? Get beaten at home to Olympiacos. All these things were very early on signs of people saying we look like we're in a bit of a malaise. We look like we're in a bit of a slow, a slow burner as such. But it didn't turn out that way. it turned out that was the actual condition of us and things like that. And I think what's really important is I don't agree that pre-season means nothing. I know that we were sitting last season and we ultimately would say that results that don't matter and stuff like that. But I think that when you have as bad a pre-season as we did last year, and then you go to Kilmarnock the first day of the season, expecting Rangers to just suddenly click and turn on was never ever realistic, considering the kind of depth of that pre-season, which was pretty horrific across the board. And while I don't expect Rangers to go to Holland to beat Ajax or even beat Man U at Murrayfield or whatever, what I do want to see is a better level of performance. I do want to see cohesion. I do want to see that energy, because results might not matter as such. But if you get a pre-season like last year when you're defeat, and really bad performance, I think that does matter. So we need to find our performance levels, our fitness, Chris, and we need to find our kind of levels in this pre-season so that we're ready to go for the first game of the season. So I think that all ties into what I'm expecting early doors and your questions surrounding that, because I would think that, or I would hope that we see like a progression level towards where we really want to be. And I think that's the easiest way to describe it. I'm not going to be sitting having a fit on Rangers Review if we don't win our pre-season games and stuff like that. As long as I'm seeing something, as long as I'm seeing fitness, as long as I'm seeing performance, as long as I'm seeing, goals and moves and things that we can get on board with. If I'm seeing it again like last year, then I'll have problems with it. But I think it's going to be, or hope it's going to be different under Clement. Do you think that's fair?
I think so. I think it ties into a point that James has made there. Now you think back to that opening press conference that the manager held in the Blue Room, and he outlined these 4 pillars of what a Clement side is, and one of them is being the fittest team in the league, and that's the one that there is no excuse for. Now, you might not be able to do the business to make yourself the best tactical team. You may have guys in the squad who are don't have the required mentality, therefore you're not the best mental side. There is no excuse with everything that's laid on at Auchenhowie for this side not to be the fittest in the league. Now, we've both been at the training ground, we both know what goes on there. There is everything you could ever want in terms of being a professional. If you then don't utilise that, again, I think that was something the manager mentioned in terms of the cryo chamber, maybe about November time or so, maybe November, December time. Everything is laid on for them. There's been work going on at the training ground over the course of the summer as well. You've mentioned some of the personnel changes that will be announced over the next few days as well. If you are a professional first team player at Rangers, everything is there for you to go and be at the peak physical condition. And I think that's one of the non-negotiables. One for the manager, but as you say, it's certainly a non-negotiable for the support. They have to see something from this pre-season campaign. Yes, it might not click. There might be relationships on the pitch that are perhaps not up to scratch. But there is no excuse for guys looking leggy and guys looking like they're towing a caravan when they have everything get laid out for them. So, an interesting few weeks ahead. In terms of what we can expect today, are you expecting some announcements from the club? I've not checked in yet. I'm going to give it more than 9:30 on a Monday morning before I start pestering people. Even that might be a bit too early for them. The manager's not even get his jacket off yet this morning, I'm assuming. But even if we don't see anything today, as you've hinted at, we do expect to see more business over the next couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think that we're going to get ins and outs, Chris. I think it could be quite a busy couple of weeks, as I've said. So I wouldn't like to put names, or I think timescales are always difficult, because you and I both know that this has happened loads of times where players arrive and we expect announcements and things are done, and you could, for all intents and purposes, be told the announcement's coming Friday, Saturday, and then that announcement suddenly comes Thursday night. Or, likewise, it doesn't come Thursday night like you were told, and it then becomes Saturday. So I think the thing is to say to people, probably quite vague surrounding this. When deals do come in, you say it's announcement expected from the club at any point. I think that's quite fair. So is there going to be signings today? I wouldn't say no, But I wouldn't say 100% yes either. What I would say is there's definitely going to be some in the next couple of days. I think that's absolutely fair. I think you're going to get people going out as well. You're going to start hearing about these deals that are possibly in the pipeline. So there's been a lot said, hasn't there, Chris, about, like James Tavernier, Todd Cantwell and things like that. But James Tavernier was back early over the weekend in pre-season, getting ready to go again today. So James Tavernier's in the building. Whether his future or not is with Saudi, we've heard a lot said about that. We're going to find out in the coming weeks. I think their window opens mid-July. So I think the thing is with that, it might be something that happens in the future, but it's not maybe something certainly that's ongoing at this moment in time. Cantwell, his future's up there. Tom Lawrence's future's up there. Ben Davies. So there's going to be players in the building today, even the guys like Scott Wright and that, who are not majorly your issue at the moment, but you would maybe want them out of the squad to make room for others. I think that you're going to see over the coming days and weeks that these guys maybe start to move closer to the exit door. So, and then we need to find out the fitness levels of Connor Golds and Cyril Dessers and stuff like that, because we need to find out where they are in relation to if they might go out the door. So there's a lot to consider. Rangers coverage of pre-season is normally pretty spot on. It's normally quite good media-wise. So we're going to start to see. I wouldn't be surprised if there's announcements with regards to off-going and staff and things like that as well. So there's going to be a fair bit to kind of do over the next couple of weeks for the men, and the women return tomorrow as well, and they've got signings to make. So there's going to be plenty to keep us busy and talk about over the next couple of weeks. And I think for me, Chris, I don't really think anything's off the table. I don't think you can actually categorically say that anyone's position at the club is safe in the first team. I don't think you can categorically say off the park it's the same. So I think we need to be open-minded the next few weeks about what's happening. I think, and we're certainly going to see big changes, I think. And it's just a matter of patiently waiting for them to come. So is there going to be a couple of signings today? We'll finish this up and we'll go and investigate a wee bit. But at this moment in time, I would expect them over the next couple of days more than be definitively saying, 6 o'clock today.
You mentioned the word patience there. That's a bad word when it comes to Rangers support. We don't. It's not a support that's renowned for their patience. I think even that was summed up on Thursday. I think that we had the Igamani transfer line, and one of the replies was, "What's happening on Koulibaly?" It's just a case of right. That one's great, but what's happening with him? Every time we have a story, it's right. What's happening with the next one? There's this this constant urge for updates on so many different players, and no matter how many times we say it, to be patient, things will get done. Is this summer window even more mad, if you like, in terms of that thirst for information amongst the support? Have you noticed that online over the last couple of weeks, that people are just desperate for things to be happening, no matter how many times we lay out the timescales and why some people are coming in at certain times and why it might be later for other ins and outs? There is just this constant need for things to be happening.
I don't think it's any different. I really don't. I think there's probably more thirst for it because the need is so big. I think the job ahead of us this summer is so huge. And as I said, only Rangers could sign, potentially have 7 people in over the next couple of days in total. If you think the rumours over Ignamani and Kabadai and stuff like that are true, that these guys, is just the start and just the beginning, and the real work still to be done. So I think that in that terms, you can understand the kind of thirst for knowledge, the kind of thirst for that exciting news and things like that. So I think even when you got the news on Thursday and then Conor Barron news comes out, you can see the reaction of the fans just want good news. They just want new signings. They want new energy. They want that, as John says, they want that feel-good factor back. I think we all want that, and we all want them in really quickly so that we can begin to start normalising again, Chris. I think that, we're all desperate for a good pre-season. We're all desperate for a good start to the league. We're all desperate for a good August. And the sooner we get these guys in, we can start theorising that and going from there. So it's patience, as you said, isn't. I think it's different for us, isn't it? Because we live and breathe this, and we have done now for several years as kind of as part of our job, and me for the blog, 6-7 years and things like that. You get kind of used to it now. Like, I'll get, and you get, 100 text messages a week asking about signings and stuff like that. And half the time, as soon as a name's mentioned online, Stevie, Chris, is there any interest in these guys? And half the time I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks. And I think that will just continue as part and parcel of it. And that's the reason why when it gets to September, me and you are so happy. So it is what it is. But I would expect, as I would say, I think this is the start of what I think would be a really busy couple of weeks. And then we can just enjoy that for what it is.
On that note, we will end there. Me and Stevie will go and start pestering people at the football club to see what's happening, to see who's in, who's out. As always, keep across the review website and keep across all our social channels for the breaking news, for the best insight and analysis on all the ins, outs, rumours, and all your latest Rangers news. So thanks once again, everyone, for joining myself and Stevie. I believe Derek is finally back from Germany tomorrow, so normal service will be resumed. Hopefully, the Wi-Fi in his gaff is slightly better than it has been on his holidays, and I'm sure Josh will be back to join you all at some point as well. But for the morning, thanks for your time as always, and we'll see you soon.